Your Royal Highnesses, ladies and gentlemen.
It's a very special occasion because this is the British leg of the launch of the Saudi Cup. Now, on each of your tables is a name denoting what was at the corresponding time, at the corresponding year, the world's richest horse race. So some of you are on the table Bendigo, 1886, the Eclipse at Sandown Park, just down the road, the world's richest horse race, the first horse race worth over £10,000 sterling. Over in the far corner, Ed Dunlop & Co. hosting the Seabiscuit table. The Agua Caliente Handicap in 1938 was the world's first $100,000 horse race. Right in front of me here, Sunday Silence won the Breeders' Cup Classic in 1989, which then held the honour of being the world's richest race. And to the left here, as it has been in most recent years, though only interrupted by the Pegasus, Thunder Snow's second win in the Dubai World Cup this year, 2019. Next year, 2020, a nice easy date for you to remember, the 29th of February, but this will be run every year and not every 4 years. The 29th of February, ladies and gentlemen, at King Abdulaziz Racecourse, just outside Riyadh in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, will be the Saudi Cup. Now, this is a race that will be worth $20 million and prize money all the way down to 10th place. There will be a field of 14. It will be run on a dirt track, which we will be hearing much more of in a few moments' time, from one of the world's greatest jockeys who's ridden around this dirt track many times and believes it to be one of the best in the world. It will be run over 1 1/8 miles, or 9 furlongs, and hopes to attract a truly international field. More than that, today we will be announcing a significant undercard to the Saudi Cup, which will figure 3 really important and valuable turf races, and there might be 1 or 2 surprises in there for you as well. This has been incredibly carefully thought out. We launched this event in Saratoga a month ago to a really appreciative, an inquisitive audience, and there will be plenty of time for questions from you a little bit later on, and most importantly, the man to whom I am going to introduce you now, because he is the chairman of the Jockey Club of Saudi Arabia. Please put your hands together for Prince Bandar, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a real learning curve for me as well, this, just getting to know a little bit about not just what you're planning, but what's gone before and the history of horse racing in your country, in Saudi Arabia. Just tell me when it started.
Well, first I'd like to welcome everybody here and really appreciate your time. Horse racing in Saudi Arabia is over 50 years old. It has evolved throughout those 50 years, but has for the most part been with local players. And 2 years ago, we pitched an initiative to prepare for an international race that would be an important race in the international calendar. And we're very lucky that the board of directors approved it. And we think we have the right formula, the right time to attract some of the best horses out there. This is a long-term plan that hopefully we'll see all the major players at some point in time do come and visit us in Saudi Arabia, try to understand just the horse racing community within the kingdom and exposed to the kingdom as a whole. So we're very, very excited about this race.
Now for you, racing's been a family affair as well, hasn't it? Your grandfather himself was a rider of some note.
I think horse riding in all of Arabia is very much part of the culture. And my father probably was one of the youngest jockeys at the time. He started racing when he was 10 years old. So I know it's not accepted now, but that's when he started racing, and he won his first race when he was 13. My great-grandfather, my grandfather, my father. I'm the only one who hasn't actually raced horses, but my daughter has taken up the task after me, so she's very much keeping up the tradition.
Could we see her riding at King Abdulaziz Racecourse at some point in the future?
Well, she's more into show jumping, not horse racing, so I don't think so. Although she did offer with a $20 million price, she said she's very willing to, if we would give her a head start.
I know you were keen to talk about the prize money and to say, yes, it's important, yes, we want to be the world's richest race. But that's not the sole reason we're doing this. We're not trying to show ourselves to be the biggest, the best. We are trying to establish ourselves as a major racing nation on the global stage.
Absolutely, and some of us in this room has had a previous experience within the kingdom and understand that for the past 5 decades it's very much a part of our culture, very much a part of equestrianism within Saudi Arabia.
And do you see this as complementary? Because it's a busy time of year, these big races, the Pegasus World Cup in Florida, the Dubai World Cup that I've just been talking about, they're all in quite close proximity to one another. Do you see them as complementary rather than competing against one another?
Well, the timing is not coincidence. We think this is a good time. It's an opening in the international calendar. It definitely adds weight to the events within the region. As you know, Dubai has been in the forefront in this field for the past 20-odd years in international racing. Bahrain, for the past couple of years, has put in an extremely interesting program together. And now with this introduced as well, I think it just adds weight to the region, and we try to time it in a way where it's far enough for people to participate in all of these races, yet close enough to take advantage of being in that part of the world.
Well, I know we're going to talk a little bit later about some of the logistics, about how you might get there, about what you might enjoy when you're in Saudi Arabia for the race. But my NBC broadcast colleague, Brittany Earton, is here with us today and has come to us from California. So we give her a warm welcome. And Brittany's going to talk to someone who knows the track very well and is in pretty good form, I'd say.
At 16 Group 1s, is it now? Since May? I think so. Nobody's counting, right? To give us some true perspective on the dirt course at King Abdulaziz Racetrack, because you've ridden around the world at some of the most prominent race courses, how would this dirt course compare to some of the others that you've ridden over?
Well, I've been very fortunate. I've been going there for a number of years, and this new track was built 15 or 20 years ago, and designed, obviously, to copy Belmont. Is very unusual to have a dirt course with 1 turn, a mile and a quarter race, and I raced in most of the American tracks or other dirt tracks around the world, and I find this track probably the best I've ridden on this kind of surface for 2 reasons. That the kickback is there is kickback, but it doesn't hurt the horses can face it, so you're able to ride a race or keep up with the speed, and it's not really speed bias. And I rode numerous turf horses on this track, and they adapt on it very well. So it bridges the gap between the traditional dirt horses and the turf horses, and it'd be a very interesting race and pretty much a very level playing field for most of the European horses and the Americans. So it's good to be there.
Well, Belmont known as Big Sandy, and this is going to be a 1-turn mile and an 1/8 race. And let's talk a little bit, because there are plenty of turf horses talented enough to go to the Saudi Cup. Why do you feel, aside from the kickback, that they would really take to this course?
The track itself, the sand, I mean, I don't know what it is, but it just suits all kind of horses, not just the traditional American dirt horses. I mean, this, like I said, I rode numerous turf horses on it, and they really adapted it really well. And the surface is amazing, and like I will say it again, is the best dirt horse I've ridden in the world.
How many goggles do you think you would go through there?
I think 1.
Wow.
Yes.
So for you, $20 million race and all of the incredible horses that you've been riding, say, this year, if you could have your pick, who would you like to ride in that race?
Well, I'll have to go around all the trainers here today and see who's got the best horse.
I think you only need to go round
Yeah.
one, and he's
That
sitting
table?
over there. Tall chap, you might recognise him.
Yeah, look, is a an amazing thing to in my career to be able to ride in a $20 million race, because it's unheard of, and I'm sure it's going to attract plenty of interest around the world, and it should be a fun day.
Thank you, Frankie.
Well, I can answer your question. Thank you, Frankie. The man in form. Prince Bandar may be able to answer your question about the unique composition of the surface on the main track at King Abdulaziz Racetrack. It's like Marmite and Guinness. There's a secret formula, isn't there, Prince Bandar? But it is sourced from a particular place.
Oh no, it's magic. That's what it is, and we can't talk about it. No, it's really an Irish gentleman who sadly passed away last year. Spent a good part of the past 2 decades working on that, and really the bottom line, it's the type of sand we use, which is very, very local, and is not for sale. So we'll. Yeah, I think the main ingredient is the type of sand that is there that really enhances, or really is the core reason for it being with such minimal kickback, plus other few mixes that we put in there.
But crucially, this is a predominantly European audience today, and
Yes.
a big part of the Saudi Cup 2020 is going to be the turf race undercard. And I'd like to welcome John Gosden, also a man in great form, up to the stage, and we're going to reveal the 3 key turf races, and I'm going to pick his brains and see what he thinks of these and see whether there might be a few opportunities in there for horses that are training in this country. John Gosden, ladies and gentlemen. I will give you that, if I may.
Yes.
And I will pick your brains about these. So first of all, John, in addition to the major race, a pretty traditional middle distance turf race, 2,100 metres, so 10.5 furlongs on the turf, worth $1 million for 4-year-olds and upwards. So that is pretty much where you'd expect to start with a major turf race, isn't it? Something comparable to, say, a Shima Classic or a Dubai Turf.
Very much so, and of course the key date of the 29th of February, we can't forget that date, obviously. It brings it a full month ahead of the Dubai races, so to that extent it's perfectly placed. I'm very impressed with the undercard because actually I didn't know it had such depth and variance. I mean, you've got obviously a sprint on the turf. You've got a turf course that's being laid obviously immaculately as we speak. And you've got a staying handicap for an extraordinary, I think the York will be angry, $2.5 million for a staying handicap. I think Teddy Grimm thought you better sharpen up with the Ebor over there. And then a turf sprint as well at $1 million at 6.7 furlongs. That's an interesting one, but I think that's...
Well, we can explain part of the significance. It is just shy of the 7 furlongs, as you've said. It's considered to be the perfect place to start a one-turn sprint on the turf to give the horses the right run into the bend. And there's a neat little bit of cultural synchronicity, Prince Bandar, here, isn't there, with this distance. If I'm not much mistaken, 1350 is the corresponding date in the Islamic calendar to 1932, the date of the foundation of the kingdom.
That is correct. It was just purely by coincidence. Although I need to point out here that is 1351. So none of you are going to realize, but we're going to push the start 1 meter. So you better be prepared for that.
On a more serious note, that intermediate distance ought to attract the fast milers and the staying sprinters.
Yeah, very much so. I think by putting it the gate there, the starting gate there, is a very smart thing. It makes it, for everyone coming, they're not so worried about the draw.
But the key point is you look at this, you're looking at the depth, you're looking at the staying handicap, you're looking at the middle distance race, and you're thinking, yes, I'm going to get horses ready for this, potentially en route to the rest of the season.
Well, I think all of us trainers in this room would be going home with this and scribbling little names along the top. And let's see if we can get one ready for this. I can hear Simon Crisford immediately looking at the 3-year-old Dirt Mile. It's just, he's very keen on that. And the other thing that Frankie, about the kickback on the track, it's amazing there's very little. And Frankie's quite tight with his money, and he loves only having 1 pair of goggles on, so he doesn't have to waste a second pair of goggles. He says, I can ride round there with 1 pair of goggles. And we know, I love American racing. You know, sometimes when it's a sloppy track, they come out with 6 goggles, all covered with cling film. So this is obviously a perfect place for us to be running horses. But what a great program. I never quite knew. I knew there was an undercard, but this is some undercard.
Right, I'm going to let you go home and let the cogs start turning, and hopefully by the end of the afternoon we'll get a nice program of horses from Clarehaven who are going to run in the races on Saudi Cup night. John Gosden, thank you very much indeed. Brittany, take it away.
Well, I'm joined by Harry Herbert, Global Ambassador for the Saudi Cup, and you truly know what goes into a successful international meeting. What do you think that comprises of, and what could possibly the Saudi Cup bring different to the table?
Well, I think everyone in this room knows the importance of international racing, and especially over the last sort of 20, 25 years plus. It's burgeoned all over the world, and what it does is it just opens up not just the racing community, but also the countries. And one of the most exciting things about the Saudi Cup is actually having the opportunity to go to Saudi Arabia, to see have a look at the culture. We did it with Dubai. We're seeing that Sheikh Issa is here. We're seeing it with Bahrain. And of course, from the Japan Cup and the Washington DC International and the Breeders' Cups and Melbourne Cups, it's what the sport now is all about, and it is so exciting. So for these races and with this exciting, it's called an undercard. It's totally the wrong word somehow, or two words, but it is very, very exciting, and it comes at a point which does give the trainers obviously terrific options to head on to Dubai. Having been out there, having seen this incredible racetrack,
What struck you most about it?
The size. Yeah. I don't know why, but I didn't expect it to be so magnificently. But it is wonderful sweeping turns, as Frankie said. It's not perhaps what one would expect. It is an incredible surface, and of course the turf track to add inside, over 9 furlongs or so is going to be very exciting too. So there's a lot of options here for any trainer, owner, or breeder or manager.
Well, I think especially in the Stayers Handicap. Talk a little bit about that and how it could make a wide open field, both trainers and horses.
Well, I think what that does is, of course, it opens it up to many more owners, and if you like, maybe the smaller owner has a much better chance of competing internationally. We've seen it with the Melbourne Cup over the years, and actually to have a race of this value, remember where everything is paid for. It is absolutely phenomenal. I love the idea when one of the Americans last week said, "So, what's it worth for second?" And I said, whatever it was, third, and fourth. And I went, you can't say fifth. And he said, "Do you get anything for fifth?" I said, "Yeah, you get $1 million." God damn, I want a horse in that race.
How about 10th? 200,000 for 10th.
$2.5 million, $1.5 million US dollars to the winner of a distance handicap is exciting. There's plenty of trainers and owners who have these sorts of horses, and this gives those sorts of horses a whole different opportunity, and allows their owners as well, and obviously sometimes the smaller trainers to travel and to be a part of this fantastic new venture.
Well, surely if they don't have the horse yet, they are going to find it. I'm curious, though, as we just mentioned, the new turf course is being laid as we speak. How do you grow grass in the middle of the desert? So Tom Ryan's going to give us a little bit of an insight to that. Director of Strategy and International Racing. So what specifically goes into laying a brand new turf course in the middle of the desert?
I suppose the first thing we've done is got the world's best expertise. SGRI based in Leeds have been the design leads on this, and we've engaged via them with the Desert Group of Dubai on this, so very experienced in warm weather installations. But the whole thing has been very carefully considered, so it'll ride perfectly well. We're very excited about the mix of races for it, and obviously we'll be working very hard to have the turf in prime condition. So it's just hugely encouraging and exciting, and as the weeks roll on and we start to get expressions of interest in terms of potential runners, and that the excitement will build, and we're just getting ready to do a very, very good job on this.
Also, we mentioned the dirt track, much like Big Sandy, Belmont Park. How would you compare the turf course? More of a European type or American?
I think because it won't have that tight sort of bend nature of some of the American tracks, so it will ride a nice galloping track. I think everybody will be happy with it, and even in terms of the dirt track, and it's a common thread across the preparation for this. There's a third generation track worker from the US working this track. His grandfather and his father before him have done it, so the Saudis have gone for the best available when they wanted to do something in relation to this, and I'd like to concur with Harry's thoughts as well in terms of the venue. First time I saw it, I was completely blown away with it. It's just an amazing place, and hopefully we'll have the pleasure of showing it to everybody maybe here in the room.
Tom, thank you. Nick, how about that? Ahead of schedule?
Yeah, ahead of schedule. I won't ask whether you're ahead of budget, Tom. I'm sure, I'm sure you are. I just wanted to ask though about quarantine, because a lot of people will be asking about the logistics of shipping horses to Saudi Arabia and how you're fixed in terms of quarantine.
Yeah, it'll be a very simple and standard arrangement that anybody's used to buy. It's going to be almost identical. And again, the geographical sort of circumstances are favourable as well. a very, very good quarantine facility in situ. The airport is only 10 minutes away, and we're working very hard with the authorities there to make the process from, you know, the aircraft stopping and getting them essentially to the stable door. So again, we're dealing with Dr. Tony Kettle, who did a lot of the quarantine stuff in Dubai and early in the years, a world leading expert on this, and James McEwen that's with us, LG Bloodstock, doing the transport for us. So again, the very best of people doing the job to the best of their ability.
And getting people to this event, not just people within the industry, Prince Bandar, but people who would just like to come and visit Saudi Arabia and come to this great race meeting. How are they fixed in terms of travel arrangements, visas and so forth?
Well, we're very lucky because for the past year and a half, the government has opened up the country for tourist visas. And there have been a number of international sporting events that have occurred there, and we've adopted the same technique that they have, which is you go online, you buy your ticket for the race, and you get your visa right there electronically within a couple of hours. So it's straightforward. You don't have to go to an embassy. You don't have to turn in your passport. You just show up at the airport with your ticket and with whatever printout you get out of the website, and you're good to go.
And I know you were particularly keen to stress that you want to encourage as much female participation as well, not just from people coming, but also you want to invite women jockeys and women trainers, and that was a concern that people had expressed in the run-up to this.
You know, interesting you mentioned that, because of all the sports within Saudi Arabia, horse racing and all equestrian sports have always been open to male and female participation and attendance. It's always been the case in Saudi Arabia, which is an odd thing, but in any case, so it's nothing new to the sport. What will be new is although we have a lot of female show jumpers and even endurance riders, we have no women jockeys. So we would like to take this opportunity to invite and encourage some of the trainers to perhaps engage with some of the wonderful new talent that is coming out across the world in terms of female jockeys, and absolutely most welcome, and we'd love to have them there.
And this sport has been habitually in Saudi Arabia a family day out as well.
Absolutely, yes. It's a family day out. The whole family gets together, goes to the racetrack. It's a whole day event, and people have always looked at horse racing as if you will, a weekend activity. So, and we're coming up with very interesting concepts to cater for that on that race day.
Excellent. Look forward to hearing about that.
Thank you.
Prince Bandar for the moment. Thank you very much indeed. Prince Bandar, ladies and gentlemen.